We turn now to former CIA Director John Brennan. He served as CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia for 3 years, was in Riyadh for 5 years, so we got our resume cut right there. I mean, let me first just ask you what you make of the administration's response so far. At first, the president said severe punishment against Saudi Arabia if this turned out to be true. Now he's musing that perhaps people are rushing to judgment, perhaps it's a guilty till proven innocent situation, and then we saw the Secretary of State Pompeo with the king and with the crown prince yesterday. How do you grade this response or assess it?
Well, I think Donald Trump and the White House are trying to protect the relationship that the United States has with Saudi Arabia, but also their personal relationship with MBS. I would hope that Trump and others are getting daily, if not more regular, intelligence briefings from CIA and others about what it is that we know. And I think this is the challenge for the Trump administration, because I'm certain that CIA has a lot of information about this, and this is why I think Mohammed bin Salman is trying to figure out what's the story he can provide that's going to stand up to scrutiny in light of U.S. intelligence and Turkish intelligence.
You know more about Saudi Arabia than almost anyone. Is there any doubt in your mind that Saudi operatives carried this out? And is there any doubt in your mind that the Crown Prince knew about it and maybe even authorized this?
The answer to your question is no and no. There's no doubt in my mind. Mohammed bin Salman is an extraordinarily powerful individual who wields full power in Saudi Arabia. And something like this, going after a U.S. resident, a journalist for the Washington Post, in a Saudi diplomatic mission abroad, would require his personal authorization, in my estimation, because this is something that individuals would not carry out on their own volition.
Well, if that's the case, then why did it seem to be so bungled? Why was it such a mess, this whole thing?
That's a great question. It just is. I don't know what they were thinking. Were they just going to go in there and interrogate him and bring him back, and this went wrong? I don't know. But the size of the delegation that went there and some of the individuals involved, and it looks as though these are members of the Saudi Royal Guard who come directly under Mohammed bin Salman. So this is something that maybe Mohammed bin Salman thought he could get away with because of the very close relationship that he has with the White House. He just very badly miscalculated the impact of this.
Just for folks who don't understand the Middle East as well as you do, I mean, why is this such a complicated situation for the U.S.? Saudi Arabia is our ally. But the president has said, look, if I cancel arms sales, if I do some of the things that people want me to do, that will hurt American interests. Why is this such a delicate dance?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump is not telling the truth when he talks about the arms sales as well as the number of U.S. jobs that rely on that. I think we need to be able to maintain a relationship with Saudi Arabia, and it needs to be more than just a relationship with one person. And so I think what we need to do is to have an investigation that has some credibility to it, that we can get to the bottom of it, so we can continue with this relationship with Saudi Arabia for our own national security interests. But we cannot turn a blind eye to what MBS has done here. I think it's awful that we have turned a blind eye for so long in terms of the atrocious and awful, appalling war that he initiated in Yemen that has led to thousands upon thousands of deaths. So MBS, I think, was drunk with power, and he has, I think, now met his real crisis.
Certainly, there are members of Congress who seem to have enough. We'll see how this all plays out with him. John Brennan, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.